everybody, MGM here. It has finally come. The most finalist of videos in this two-part series I created for the purpose of introducing people to tabletop games that I personally think are excellent alternatives to Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons. Now for the honorable mentions, these are companies that came very close to making the list, but were beat out by other games due to me having more experience with those other games, or for those other games meeting my criteria a little bit more. And if you're new, I had a loose criteria for the games making both of these lists. All games needed to be a D20 system with similar, but not the same necessarily, stats. They had to be offered in the traditional fantasy setting or some variation thereof. Check out my genre chat on fantasy if you want to know more about that. And finally, they were all games that I have GM'd and or played before. And the main thing that these honorable mentions all have in common is my lack of experience with the game system itself. So I couldn't speak as confidently on those games as I could with the games that are in these lists. Main lists, that is. Also, the other thing they have in common is I don't own any physical copies of the games I will mention here, at least not yet. I will use pictures where I feel it might be needed. All this, of course, is ultimately subjective. Every game I recommend in the 12 videos of these two series are choices that I stand behind as excellent games and choices for those looking for games to play that aren't bogged down with higher corporate meddling and greed. That also includes all of my honorable mentions, not just the ones that make the list. Now, before we dive in, this is probably a really good place to say that I'm not paid for any of this. Anything you see on the screen that's on my table here is something that I have purchased myself, and I receive nothing for my recommendations. I do this for fun and because I love tabletop RPGs and personally think everybody should play them at least now and again. Just to let you know what's on the table as a little bit of eye candy for you to look at while I'm discussing. All three of these are games that are some of my absolute favorite in this particular genre, D20 systems. We have Cairn right here. We have the premium edition of Shadow Dark here and the premium edition of Knave right here. Now, the other thing that these three have in common, other than being my favorite games, is I actually backed each of these on the Kickstarter that they had, or backer kit, or whatever they had. Either way, I backed them before I had it. I should be having the Cairn 2 edition that I backed coming to me, hopefully within a month, 2 months here. I should be getting it in the mail. I'm very excited for that. Let me know if you want to see me unbox that. I might unbox it on camera if that's something somebody wants to see. Now that that's all been said, let's take a look at my three honorable mentions. All right, should have some pictures up on the screen here at some point when I'm talking here, but my first and favorite of my honorable mentions is Pickpocket Press and their games Low Fantasy Gaming and the recently released Tales of Argosa. Pickpocket Press itself is essentially out of Sydney, Australia, and writes games for the love of tabletop RPGs, and I absolutely love that. Their most recent game that I just mentioned, Tales of Argosa, seems to be gaining a lot more popularity and for good reason, at least from what I've seen of the game so far. Pickpocket Press even commented on one of my videos before, so shout out to you guys. Some really cool people writing some really great games. They also recently released, after a successful Kickstarter, an anthology written for Shadow Dark, and guess who's definitely going to be buying that pretty soon. Now, both Low Fantasy Gaming and Tales of Argosa are familiar D20 systems with tweaks that I think are pretty good. One of the things I liked that I saw was the use of perception as a stat rather than a static ability. I thought that was pretty cool. I like that actually quite a bit. Now, why didn't they make this list? And Pickpocket Press, if you're watching, don't hate me for this. Keep in mind, I'm still highly recommending your games. But honestly, you got squeaked out a little bit by Dungeon Crawl Classics. But also the fact that I have less experience with your games than I do with that game. I'm hoping to remedy that in the very near future. Now, one of the things I'm going to do to remedy that is that as I record this video, I do have a copy of the original 2016 Low Fantasy Gaming in the mail coming to me, and I'm very seriously considering picking up a copy of Tales of Argosa. It does look pretty freaking great from the initial stuff I've seen so far. Now, I will, of course, be sure to link Pickpocket Press in the description below, but don't hesitate to run over to DriveThruRPG and look them up. You can find all of their social media links on their webpage. No matter what you do, just check them out. At least give them a look over and give these smaller publishers a shot. Okay, guys, my second honorable mention is for those out there who may really like 5th edition Hasbro D&D as a system, but they're really getting tired of the corporate shenanigans and all the bad press that they tend to get of their own doing. That company is Cobalt Press and their game Tales of the Valiant. Cobalt Press has been making awesome D&D supplements, materials, and adventures since 2006 and have won many awards and some good popularity to go along with that. Last year, they released Tales of the Valiant, and that's basically their take on 5th edition D&D. And they did this after their Black Flag project, and that's the name they ended up giving the rule set they use for Tales of the Valiant. Tales of the Valiant is probably the closest game to 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons than any other on the list, and that could be a draw for people who just really like 5th edition as a system. They boast a ton of lore too, as Kobold Press does a lot of writing, so if you're looking for that, that's already in place. Why didn't they make the list? Honestly, I don't have any personal experience with this game either. Also, the crunchiness that is implied by being a 5th edition inspired game didn't quite catch my attention. Also, Tales of the Valiant is a more pricey option than most others on the lists that I made here. They're pretty close to the price of what Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons are if you're buying the physical copies. Not quite there, but pretty close. However, they do still offer excellent products, really nice quality books with great artwork, and a company that does legitimately love tabletop RPGs. If that sounds like something you're down with, check them out in the link below. That's where you're going to find all their social media pages as well. My third and final of the honorable mentions is Troll Lord Games and their flagship game, Castles and Crusades. Now, Troll Lord Games has been around since 1999, first publishing Castles and Crusades in 2004. They also were the primary publishers for Gary Gygax from 2001 to 2008. They did this all the way up until his passing. As you can see, they have deep ties to the original D&D community and game system alike. Troll Lord Games publishes a few other tabletop RPGs, and they write their own fiction for all their games. So those looking for a pre-built world rich with lore should really like this system. As for Castles and Crusades, it is a D20 system that is based on Dungeons & Dragons, so the core rules are super easy to learn. The books also stand out as very high quality, and the artwork is often worth getting at least one of the books just to have the artwork itself. I might do that myself, get one of the older copies just to get the artwork in there because it's really good. They do a really good job. Now, much like the previous two mentions in my list here, Castles and Crusades takes that D20 rule set and does some of its own things with it. One of the things I liked in that system was seeing how Knight and Paladin are actually separate classes in the 13 classes that they offer. Troll Lord Games does have a pretty large presence in the tabletop RPG circuit as far as conventions and things out there, and they do have an equally large following to go along with that. Why didn't Troll Lord Games make the list? Again, it's my lack of experience with the system. Also, from the PDF I looked at, the game is a bit crunchy for my personal GM taste. And once more, the price of books are the same as Hasbro Dungeons & Dragons, making them the more expensive of the games on the list. Now, that's up to you whether that matters to you or not. Despite that, of course, Troll Lord Games is another company definitely worth checking out, especially if you like the lore and to see what else Gary Gygax wrote after he split from Dungeons & Dragons. Check them out at the link below. Again, you're going to find all their social media and stuff at that link below. Well, there you have it, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this ride. Here is where I do admit my personal bias towards rules-like games. Now, for me, rules-like game is the type of game that fits my personal GM style best, and often an easy way to learn about playing or GMing tabletop RPGs for those who are totally new to the hobby. And looking to introduce new games, my first list, titled My Plea for You to Try Other Tabletop RPGs, and I know it's a long title, but I was leaning more towards smaller, independent games that stick to the typical D20 dice system in a fantasy setting. It also includes the least expensive of the games, and most are actually free in PDF form if you're okay with just using PDFs. In this list, tabletop RPG companies I recommend, I did the same thing but with larger companies. And by larger, I mean larger in presence and popularity, not necessarily the company size itself. I also included the idea of in-house support for adventures and supplements a little more heavily on that list. Now, by taking the 18 or so games I've mentioned in both series, including my honorable mentions, I tried to give a good blend of games ranging from minimalist independent games all the way up to crunchier, very popular games. All are great games that I stand by as solid recommendations. Yet I am but one man. I can't buy and play all of the games. So if you have a game or company that you think would make a good alternative to the corporate flagship of our hobby, please list them in the comments below. And maybe give a reason why you like it. Share that tabletop love with all the people in the community here. Now, if you ever feel like you want to support what I'm doing here, the way to do that is really to check out some of the stuff I recommend. Not through affiliate links, just go check out some cool people and put your hard-earned money toward the people who make the tabletop RPG community both possible and awesome. I would of course like to give the biggest of shout-outs to all of the games mentioned in this two-part series and the people that make them possible. Without you, this hobby would not be half as amazing as it is, and I can't thank all of you enough. Please keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much, all of you. I really can't say it enough. I love this hobby, and you guys make it possible, so thank you so much. As always, a big shout out to my subscribers. As I record this video, I am approaching 580 subscribers, and I really can't believe that, guys. Thank you so much for caring about what I have to say about tabletop games and for making this little side project I have so worthwhile. I hope to keep bringing you some cool stuff to consider and maybe a chuckle here and there. Finally, I have to give another just ginormous shout out to my players and great GMs in their own rights. You guys are the best a GM could ask for, and I cannot appreciate that enough. I'll probably say it a billion times, but it's the truth, guys. As for you who are listening, you too are also awesome, and I give a huge shout out to you. I really hope you enjoyed these two lists and find yourselves and your players an awesome game that everybody can enjoy and play for fun first. Thanks for watching, everybody.